Welcome to the Agent of Wealth podcast with Marc Bautis from Bautis Financial. In this podcast, Marc helps guide you towards financial freedom, ensure you never run out of money, and create a balance in life that prioritizes what is most important to you. Join us for this journey as Marc draws from years of expertise and guest experts to solve the multiple wealth building challenges involved in your financial life.
Welcome back to the Agent of Wealth. This is your host, Marc Bautis. On today's show, we brought on a special guest, Gordon Stein. Gordon's an international keynote speaker, blogger, personal finance expert, and author of Cashflow Cookbook, $2 million of financial freedom in 60 easy recipes. He delivers transformational talks that help people crush their number one stress, their finances. Gordon, welcome to the show.
That's a pleasure to be here, Marc. Thank you.
I love talking about finances. Obviously, stress is a big thing, not just with finances, but with everything else going on. So I think it's definitely a relevant topic. You wrote the book, Cashflow Cookbook. How did you come up with the idea, or why did you write that book?
Well, I've always been interested in personal finance and helping people with it. And when you read the stats, it's really shocking the kind of shape people are in with their finances at all income levels. So the book started with an observation about how to get car washes for free. And it was an easier way to get a car wash. This is legally, by the way. And it was an easier way of getting a car wash, saved about $25 a month, which isn't a lot of money. And then I kind of stumbled in a way to cut my home security costs in half, monthly bill. That got me curious, what else is there? So I started making a list of ideas, minimal effort, minimal sacrifice that free up cash flow. And it was a bit of a hobby. The list grew to $13,000 of monthly savings ideas. And I took the list to my accountant to say, hey, where's my math errors here? And of course, if you invest that at 6, 7, 8%, you grow to truly enormous sums of money. And he said, you know what, there's no math errors here. This would make a great book. And that's all I needed to hear. And 230 pages later, out came Cashflow Cookbook. And it's just been a fabulous way to help people with their finances.
Yeah, the way you introduced the book, you talk about kind of recommendation that someone should save 10% of their money that comes in. And I even recommend that too, or some form of it to, everyone that I talk to. But I think you bring up a good point. It's not easy to just all of a sudden be doing this or have this lifestyle, and all of a sudden someone tells you should be saving 10% and flip a switch, and all of a sudden you're saving 10%. So I like the concept of the book of being able to, all right, you should be saving 10%. Everyone pushes back and says, I can't do it. And now you come up with, this is how you can do it. So I think then the concept of the book is definitely relevant. You broke it up into, I think it's 60 different, and you call them recipes, which is another thing I like about the book, is that it's the other thing that I think gets people down when it comes to savings or, budgeting, cash flow, is that they try and take on too much at once. And then it becomes, overbearing, or they give up, and all of a sudden they're back at square one. Why'd you break it up into recipes and kind of that correlation that you gave to it?
Yeah, there's two parts to your question. The first one is this business of saving 10%. People see it as this tug of war. So most personal finance writers save your 10%, give up the things you like, and do some budgeting. And of course, people don't have the 10%. They don't want to give up things they like, and they hate budgeting. So I don't think we need to have this tug of war. I think you can save the 10% without giving up anything. So that was the original concept. I was going to write it as kind of a novel. And then I realized there's so much math to it. And each of these different ideas that I had, they can all save money. And what's it worth after 10 years of investing, in 20 years, or if you're going to use it to pay down debt? And I was frustrated because I had all my characters. I had everything ready to go. And then sort of under my breath, I said, geez, it just isn't a novel. It's more like a cookbook. And I thought, oh my goodness, it is a cookbook. And then I got an idea of Cashflow Cookbook, which had a great meter to it. And so they're written as financial recipes. And it's a lot like a recipe book. People will read the book. There's a section on transportation, lots of ideas of saving on your car. And so some people say, I don't have a car. And I say, great, then you just skip those recipes. No different if you're having a dinner party with chicken dishes, you skip the veal part of the cookbook. So you can go right into what's of interest. The recipes, you can read them in a couple of minutes, and you say, hey, I love that. And then the idea is you can put your own math at the bottom. So I'll do a couple of worked examples, what this recipe might look like for a family of 5, what it might look like for a single person. And people may say, well, I don't buy those numbers. And I say, great, that's why this is section, put your own numbers in. What do you think you can save? But the whole key is you read the recipe, you say, hey, I love this. I hadn't thought of this one. I'm going to do it. You work out your savings, you make the changes, you commit. They don't take long to do. And right away, you lock in that $160 or that $240. I recommend, if you're in debt with high interest rate debt, pay that off. Otherwise, you want to get that to your financial advisor and get them working that money. Then you can really accelerate your wealth.
And I guess that's how they can see the benefit of it, right? Because I think that also helps that you project out. Someone may look at it and say, oh, $100 a month, big deal. But then if you start looking at what that means over a course of years, it can be motivating. What's the most you've ever seen anyone save from executing on these?
I was working with a financial advisor. He had a client who freed up, was it $1,950? So to get into the bigger numbers, that would typically be somebody who perhaps has a home and a cottage. They've got 3 teenagers with cell phones, so they're sort of a fully loaded set, so there's more room to save. I would say just about everybody can find $500 a month in the book. I would be surprised if a person who's earning more than a household income of, let's say, over $100,000, I would be shocked if they couldn't find $500 to free up every month with minimal effort, minimal sacrifice.
Yeah. You mentioned minimal effort, minimal sacrifice. I think that's a big thing that people get hung up on, because immediately whenever you start talking about spending, or you even throw the budget word to people, it's looked at negatively and there's pushback, because what they think is they equate it to restriction. Oh, they're going to tell me I can't do this. I'm going to have to sacrifice, and they're just going to push back on it. But I think, a lot of the ones that you have in the book are not, you don't have to you're not going to start eating ramen noodles all day, every day.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about how it doesn't necessarily mean sacrifice?
Well, I would say there's really nothing in the book that involves any kind of a sacrifice whatsoever. So the premise is really you're making changes, and the changes that you make, it took me 2 years of research to get all these recipes together. These are things that are easy to do. Some of them can take 10 minutes and free up $100 a month. So those are the kinds of things where people go, are you kidding me? And so they go and do it. And then the key right away, you lock it in. You don't leave that money, boiling around in your checking account, or it'll be gone.
Yeah. And even on that point, the first recipe that I came across in the book was about your homeowner's insurance. And this is one actually before reading the book that I was a big promoter of, shopping your homeowner's insurance, just because people don't. They'll get their policy and they'll just stick with it for 5-10 years. And the insurance carriers, they change. Their premiums change, what they're covering. The way you phrase it in there is, can you get the same, or if not better, coverage for less money? And homeowner's insurance is pretty costly. So you probably can save a good chunk if you went out and looked for other options for it.
Yeah, I did a talk actually here in Ohio with a group, and I spoke with them afterwards on kind of a follow-up session. And one of the things I mentioned was car insurance. And, they went back and shopped. On average, they were $150 to $200 a month that they saved. And the great news is, when I originally wrote the book in 2017, I said, look, you got to call around, you got to listen to some bad hold music, you got to repeat your vehicle identification number 10 times. But even then, if you can save $100 or $200 a month, let's use the example of car insurance, wow, is that ever worth it? 7% over 40 years, that's $500,000.
Yeah.
But now there's websites. You can do all of these comparisons on all kinds of different things. We can talk about lots of examples, and you can free up that cash. It might take you 10 minutes with a glass of wine sitting behind your laptop.
Yeah, I guess that's the internet and the fact that information is out there and available. It's made some of this stuff easier to do. What are some of the other areas that you see people, being able to save money in?
Yeah, it's every possible area, Mark. So in Cashflow Cookbook, we start off with housing, which is typically the biggest expense. Then we take a look at transportation and food. Those 3 tend to be really big. We move on to household, lifestyle, and financial. So it's all across the board. Give you a couple of other examples. And some of these, I got through my research. In some cases, my blog readers have sent me ideas. Personal story, I had to start taking statin pills, for cholesterol lowering. And I did what everyone did. I went to the doctor. I got a prescription. I walked to the pharmacy in the basement of his office, or across, because there's always one nearby. And I said, hey, give me my pills. And they said, great, they're $108 a month, which is kind of a lot of money. I have to take these for the rest of my life. So $108 a month. I'm a personal finance guy. And I said, that's kind of expensive. So right away, she said, well, why don't you get one of our drugstore drug cards? And then the prescription goes down to 68. And I thought, wow, I'm going from 108 to 60. That's a big drop. I said, how much is the card? It's $20 a year. So I was quite pleased with myself. I was out for dinner with my brother-in-law. And of course, I was bragging about this brilliant job I did, chopping $40 on my prescription. He said, no. He says, you want to go to this online pharmacy. You mentioned GoodRx, which is a good one. And I went on there, and these prices fluctuate a little bit, but I think it was something like, at the time, $13 a month. I'm saying this is unbelievable, 108 to 68 to 13. I thought, how far does this go? So I started looking around online. I now get my pharmaceuticals from Blink Health. I pay $7 a month for my cholesterol pills. They're delivered to my house. I don't even leave the house. They come in a little bag, and I buy 90 days at a time because that's about half the price per pill than if you buy it 30 days at a time. So here's a really simple tweak. That's $100 a month. Didn't take me 5 minutes of internet searching, and it's all set up automatically. I get these things every 90 days.
Yeah, the book's full of recipes like that. One of the areas that I think people have trouble with is food, probably from all different reasons, from food going to waste to people eating out too much. But I know you have a full section on food. What are a couple in there that you think people could take advantage of?
Yeah, the food one is massive. I think one of the greatest ones is a loyalty card at your grocery store. So the one that I go to here in Ohio, it didn't take me 10 minutes to sign up for their loyalty card. They scan it each time I buy groceries. My wife obviously has a card as well. And the way they do is at the bottom of the bill, they show you the rolling 12 months of how much you've saved. So there's just two of us in the house, and it is the actual difference because we have a card versus if we didn't have a card, $1,250 in the last 12 months. So there's $100 a month. I don't do anything differently. I don't run around to 12 grocery stores. I'm not clipping any coupons. There's none of that stuff. So there's a really good one. And again, giving up nothing whatsoever. One that is surprising big deal. I think I didn't do it in all of my working years when I was in the corporate world. This idea of just bringing 10 lunches a month. They save about $10 per lunch. And you're only bringing 10. That's not even half the work days. There's another $100 a month. And it's a chance to eat something healthier than the cafeteria fare. If you bring it every day, that could be $200 or $250 a month. So that one is a little bit of effort, but it's got some health benefits.
Yeah.
And that's another way to free up some cash. I'll throw in one more that's quite interesting. If you go to one of the big box stores like Costco, they routinely sell gift cards for restaurant chains, and they'll sell them for about 75 cents on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit of a no-brainer. You go to a place like Costco, you get those cards, you're going to go for dinner,
Sure.
Date night, and off you go, and now you're paying 3/4 as much.
Yeah, not bad. That's a pretty good idea. I know in your book, you talk about importance of tracking your net worth. Why do you think that's so important?
Well, it's interesting. People tend to focus on their budget. And if that works for somebody, great. I find it leads to a lot of marital discord, the budgeting. So I've never enjoyed the budgeting. What I recommend people do is they set up two checking accounts. One is the bill account. So all of the, your cell phone bill, the insurance, the mortgage, all of those monthly recurring bills go in there. And that one receives through the paychecks or your income enough money to cover it every month because it tends not to vary very much. What that does now is it does two things. It distills your regular checking account. It's called a joint account for a spouse if you have one. And there's clarity there now because you're not confused. You're not getting overdrawn because the mortgage payment came out and you forgot that it was still to come out, all of that. So you set it up in that way. Then you're able to focus on grinding down those bills on the one side, and then you've got the rest on the go. So if you do that, I actually think in many cases you can get rid of budgeting because you've already ground down the bills. That stuff's kind of spoken for. And then you just let go into your checking account the money you can and spend the whole thing. Just go right ahead. But you've already pulled off money out of grinding down these expenses to send it over to people like yourself, Mark, to get invested. So now you don't need to worry about budgeting. What's more important, though, rather than net worth, because I don't like the term, I call it wealth. It's just the difference between what you own minus what you owe. And I think that's a good thing for anyone to do. And I like the idea of people tracking it monthly for a year and then go to quarterly or go to annually. But what it does is it really sharpens your focus. So instead of the marketers out there kind of gamifying you to buy more stuff, Now you're getting gamified in terms of, hey, what's my wealth number? And is it growing? Am I shrinking what I owe? And am I growing what I own?
Yep. Talking about, I guess, Headspace. How does some of this best coordinated between spouses who may be on different pages with kind of how they think about money or what their past beliefs are on money?
That's a really big one. And I think like any other aspect of marriage, it's all about communication and getting some alignment. Being able to visualize things makes a big difference. Both parts of that partnership, if they're each working, each has a set of bills that they're going to grind down. And in Cashflow Cookbook, we see a couple who does exactly that. They take those recurring bills and they each take responsibility for grinding it down. And again, that changes your headspace. So let's say that one partner works on the mobile bill and, figures out the TV, internet kind of bill, and they've worked to shrink those down and they start to get excited because they freed up $200 a month. I think they're less likely to go out and fritter it away now because the psychologist, hey, we're working on our wealth. They can set some wealth targets. And I think if you set things up where you've got your 10 or even 15 or 20% heading off to your financial advisor for building wealth, go ahead and spend the rest, have fun with it. Have an emergency account, and then the rest you just spend. Why budget? And I think if you do that, then you're working together, and then you do a check-in point maybe halfway through the month. Hey, we've got X thousand dollars we're supposed to spend. We've spent half of it. Where are we? It's the 17th of the month. Great. Any big ones coming out? Do we need to? And then you can course correct, and I think that really gets rid of it. When you budget, I think it sets up the friction right off the bat.
Yeah. The other thing I see sometimes too is like, I guess if you can equate it to, let's say someone goes on a diet, they want to get healthy, they want to lose weight, and they're successful. They lose weight. But then you look at them a year from now or 2 years from now, and they gain the weight back. I could see similarities on the financial side with, maybe they go through the exercises in the cookbook and it's great. They're able to reduce by some number per month. But then a year from now or 2 years from now, they're back at where they were previous. How can someone prevent from going back to, their old habits?
But I think you've got to look out to the vision. So, there's a million temptations. And when you look at marketers, they're doing functional MRIs of our brains to figure out, what makes us buy. A lot of stores have sensors. They can track us moving around the store. So there's so much power there, and we're kind of powerless as consumers. They know exactly, how to fire up the endorphins and getting us buying and all of those things. But I think the most important thing is if you set that longer term goal, and this is where wealth comes in, if you actually have wealth, what it means is you have choices. Some people say to me, at the end of a talk, they'll come up and they'll say, hey, Gordon, great talk. I don't really care about adding another $3 million to my wealth. And I say, well, what is it you really want to do? Well, I want to, leave the working world early. I don't want to go build schools in Nepal. Well, great. So let's talk about the target that you want to get to so you can leave exit work at 50 and go build schools in Nepal, whatever it is. And when you do that, now you've got a target. And the idea of financial freedom, I don't know of anything you can buy that's as blissful as having financial freedom. I get up when I want to get up. If it's a sunny, nice day outside, I'm going to go for a bike or a kayak. If it's lousy outside, I'm going to grab a guitar off my wall and do some jamming, unless I've got a speaking engagement somewhere. So I think when you do that, it changes the mindset because that is so powerful and it rules for the rest of your life. You can enjoy and you have the freedom. You're not stressed about money.
On the front topic of financial freedom, how should someone approach it? Because I guess similar to how we started with, sometimes people can have a goal that they just become overwhelmed by and they kind of get discouraged and they stop. But how does someone go from just, maybe money comes in and they spend it and they're not saving anything to deciding, yes, I want to make a change, but then how do they kind of have those small wins to get going to get on that path to that financial freedom? Because, like we know, it's not overnight that it happens. What's the first step?
In the book, I lay out a series of steps. And a lot of other, financial wellness, personal finance authors, they'll say, establish an emergency fund and, save your 10%. I just don't think it's good advice. Using the cooking analogy, because there's lots of bad cooking puns in Cashflow Cookbook, I say step one is you broil a bill. So you just pick one. Car insurance, you can jump online to zebra.com or insurify.com. In 10 minutes, you can see 10 or 12 different alternatives. And you're going to go do that. You're going to make the change, make sure the coverage lines up and so on and so forth. Make the change. And I'll bet you're going to free up at least $100. And then if I was working with you as a financial advisor, I'd call you up and say, I'm going to give you another $100 a month. How do we make that happen? I would lock it in before I look at it, before anybody buys anything with it. And now we've made a change. When I work with financial advisors, the clients, then the advisor will say to the client, okay, look, let me redraw your wealth projections now that you've got this extra $100. And there's a tangible difference there. And it took you 10 minutes. You didn't give up anything at all. And then I think it starts to become addictive. Then, you broil another bill. And then, you lock it in. You savor the savings, as I call it in the book. You're going to savor the savings, and you're going to start to see that going. You're going to jump on your wealth spreadsheet, and you're going to see those numbers going up. And now you're going to start to get involved in it. And when you get involved in something, you get committed to it.
Yeah.
That's what I think is the first step.
That's how you can get that momentum going. And then
absolutely,
it can snowball from there once you can see it. And then I think, like you said, maybe the first place you look is reducing debt, because it could be high credit card bills or some other personal loans that have a high interest rate. I mean, even some student loans have high interest rates as well. But, that may be a good first place to start too.
And you know what? You keep your bourbon at the end of the day. You keep your Chardonnay. You keep your Starbucks coffee. You do what you want to do, what's important to you. I don't cut any corners if I'm getting concert tickets. I'm going to go see the Eagles.
Right.
Tomorrow night, I got the best possible seats. If I'm buying guitars or kayaks, I buy the best ones I can find.
Yeah.
But you can be assured that my electricity bill and my pharmaceutical drugs and my gas bills, those are crushed down because I get no joy out of spending money on a gas bill.
Yeah. The saying I forget where it's from, but it's spend lavishly on things that are important to you and drastically cut or reduce, spending on things that aren't.
That's exactly right.
So what's next? Do you have a plan for another book, or what else in the personal finance space are you working on?
Well, I'm just redoing the book. So I've done 6 editions of the book. It's been rewritten and reprinted 6 times. This will be number 7. And this is actually the start of my U.S. edition. So the first 6 editions were all in Canada. I'm originally from Canada. I'm an American now and living in Ohio. So it's quite interesting in the U.S. because there's a lot more opportunity for Americans than what I saw when I did the research on the Canadian book. There's more comparison engines here. There's a bigger difference that you can make on things. And what's interesting is when I look at the stats, for example, on mortgages, 77% of Americans only look at one mortgage alternative when they take out a mortgage on their house. This is crazy. So it's a much, much bigger opportunity here. By the time we go to air, the U.S. edition of Cashflow Cookbook will be up on Amazon. So I want to get that done. I'm doing a lot of work with the Financial Planning Association. So working with financial advisors and helping them to help their clients free up more cash. I want to get a course together, an online course, get that up and running. And in addition, I do a lot of speaking engagements, typically financial conferences, those kinds of things, or HR groups, and talking about financial wellness. Because I find the wellness industry, which is $8 billion in the United States, and a lot of programs on how to do stress reduction, getting people more active and eating better and all this. But what's the number one source of stress? It's their finances. So why don't we help them with their finances, So I think there's a lot of space in wellness that I'd like to do as well. And then I put out my blog posts at Cashflow Cookbook. And these are, they sort of paint outside the corners of the book. It's interesting. One of the most popular blog posts I put out, it came out of curiosity. I thought, is premium vodka worth it? So my wife and I did some extensive research, blind testing all of these premium vodkas. And, you go into a bar and people often say, well, can I have a Grey Goose? And they say, give me a Belvedere. And I tell you, we went backwards and forwards on this thing, and we absolutely could not tell the difference. So our conclusion of our vodka blog post is, hey, try it yourself. But I think you're throwing a lot of money down the drain. So it gets into fun things like vodka.
Which vodka came up as the best bang for the buck?
We literally couldn't tell the difference. We had tasting notes, Mark. So we went from the most premium thing we could find to the bargain brands, and we went backwards and forwards. All the details are in the blog post. Is premium vodka worth it? I think I titled it at cashflowcookbook.com. And, I thought this one's quite smooth. And then I kind of went through another whole round and it was all over the road. There was no rhyme or reason. So that was my conclusion. But some of these things are massive. When I do the blog posts, sometimes they're on one-time expenses. So I can give you an example of going from $7,000 to zero.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I lost my hearing quite early in the game, so I had to get hearing aids. And like most people, I delayed for 7 to 10 years after I needed them for two reasons. One is vanity. I don't want to look like the guy who's got hearing aids. But the big one's expense, because as most people know, hearing aids are about $7,000. And I got mine for free, which was kind of interesting. So I went to a couple of hearing places, and how much are the hearing aids? Well, there's $7,000. And they always stress that we give you free batteries for life. So I thought, okay, that's important, the batteries. Then on a bit of a fluke, I saw somewhere that Costco sells hearing aids, and I'm a Costco customer. So I went in, and they have their own house brand, Kirkland. So you can get Kirkland corduroy pants, Kirkland tilapia fillets, and Kirkland hearing aids.
Yep.
So I said, what's the deal on the hearing aids? How much are they? And they said, well, they're $1,500. I said, well, $3,000 for the pair, that's quite a discount from the $7,000 I've been seeing. And they said, no, that is the pair, $1,500. And I kind of said, well, what's wrong with them? Because the other ones are, Apple certified. They can connect to my iPhone. They showed me the box with the Apple certified logo on it. And I said, wow. And so we went through the whole thing, and they said, this was actually in Canada. There's a government benefit there where you get $500 per ear, $1,000 for your head towards hearing aids every 5 years or something. So I said, great. I said, so these things are $500. And then I did something that just about no one does. I went back to my company benefit book, which I talk about in the book, and I actually read it, which most people don't do. And lo and behold, there's a hearing aid benefit for $500.
Yeah.
So what was going to be a $7,000 expense, I walked out paying nothing, which is exactly what I'll do for the next pair. But it's a little bit of shopping around. It's a bit of research. But I don't want people clipping coupons. You read some of these personal finance authors on how to make your own cleaning supplies, and you put tinfoil in your windows. Don't do any of that. That's nonsense. I wouldn't do it. I don't want anyone doing that.
Don't need to go to that extent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about out of time. Gordon, I'd like to thank you for being on the show. You gave some great tips on how best people can maximize their cash flow. How best can someone find out more about you, about the book, your website, or reach out to you?
Sure, that'd be great. So if you go to the website, which is cashflowcookbook.com, you can get a hold of me on the website. You'll figure out the contact section. Copies of the book, you can get the Canadian or the US edition available on Amazon.com. And I'd love to hear back from you. I also do a lot of speaking. So if you want a speaker for one of your groups, you can reach out in the speaking section of cashflowcookbook.com.
Great. We'll link to all that in the show notes. So thanks again, Gordon, and thank you everyone for tuning in today.
Thank you for listening to the Agent of Wealth podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Bautis Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial planning and investment advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investments and financial planning.